I just wanted to go through a few thoughts on VRoid Studio and features that I think would be useful for it to have in the future. It is a very nice tool for making character creations, and there are a number of things you can use it with. This is actually one of my original characters. As you can see, there's a lot of detail in the hair. One thing that I think would be nice would be to have an ear option for, say, pointed ear deformation. Because as of now, it just has a size option. Maybe even having an option to bend the ear shape. I know some games have that in character creators, so that'd be pretty cool. Not a necessary feature. You can do all of that in Blender. I'm still kind of figuring out how to get the Blender tool to work, though, because I've run into a few errors. But I haven't tried the new Blender, so that's probably part of the reason why. So most of the features that I'm thinking about are relating to the hair. When you go to create a hair, it has this kind of a template thing, and it's pretty cool how it works. You can draw a strand of hair like so, etc. But the only issue that I really have with this method, or actually it's not the only issue, but it's one of the major issues, is that there's not a whole lot that you can do with positioning. You can kind of get around certain things by doing one guide that goes one direction and then having it meet with another guide that goes in a slightly different direction. But as you can see, there's a ton of guides I have to use in order to get certain things to work a certain way. I'm gonna actually disable all the hair on this so that I can just kind of show. Okay, there we go. On this menu right here would be to have a center option that can actually move the whole guide forward, backward, upward, down, maybe even have a rotation and size adjustment. Because if you go in and you try to move these things, you can't move it forward or back. You can move it up or down, but these things you can, but this one you can't. And for things like hair extensions in particular, let me throw a few examples into what I mean by what I think it would be nice if they added. So for starters, the one that I think would be most useful would be just basically a flat plane, which perhaps it can have multiple lines going down it. But what I'm looking at is basically we have a node here, all your points, and again maybe even an option to add more strands going through here. But with a plane like this, you could just bend it however you really want, and then make your adjustments with the hair strands accordingly. This would be really useful if you just want a single strand that comes up. Say for example, you want a hair that looks like so you want a hair that looks like that roughly. With that, you could have a flat plane. See my point? Another thing, and especially if you have a character with, say, twin tails, having a cylinder shape. It's not the best example. Cylinder, maybe. There we go. That's a little better. That's just a rough cylinder. Put it at a slight offset there. But if you had kind of a cylinder shape where where you had your little nodes here and there, places like that. I need to put one over there, don't I? And then on the end, what I would do is add an extra spot. Let me fix that last part. There we go. On the ends, I'd add something like that, and I would give them an additional node on these at the halfway points. As well as a control node right there, there, and then a center one for basic movement. So if you want to move the whole thing around in any direction, you click on that one. Maybe even if you click on it, it'll have a little rotation option, or even just a resize type option. But this one down here, and the reason why I made that a different color, let's say you have your line like that, and you got your two nodes on the side, and then you got your center node right there. If you pull on the center node, then you could pull it out and have a little point on the end there. So you'd have that. But the reason I had the extra for the halfway point is for curvature. So let's say that you went over and you pulled on this node. It could adjust it like that, basically turning the cylinder into a capsule shape. And I think that would be very useful, because for shape like hair extension, you want something that can float around, that you can also wrap your hair around. So that's a feature that would be nice. And maybe even they can add one of those little nodes over here. Let me go back to green again. And basically for something to, say, with the whole cylinder, almost go to a cone shape. But that's just kind of one thought on the hair. There's a number of shapes that they could use. They do have a lot of really interesting ideas with clothing parts, so they may actually go in this direction in the future. But again, this is just my take on it. I think that pretty much sums up all my thoughts. A plane and a cylinder would be nice. We already have kind of a cylinder, but it doesn't really move from its position. And having that option would be nice. The other thing I want to focus on is camera. As someone who draws, I look at this as a posing tool. It has a really nice poser in here, where if you go down to here, you can rotate the head, arm movements, body movements, etc. But one of the things that a lot of tools that are similar to this tend to lack is a way to save the view. And I think it would be a really nice feature. Say, for an example, down here at the bottom, let's say you had a little block section down here. And I'm actually going to kind of base this off of Blender's layer idea, but let's say you had, just say, 6 slots. The top ones could be where you load, the bottom ones could be where you save. And not only could they have this for view, but they could also have it for just poses in general. So let's say that you're wanting to make a walking animation, and before anyone says, well, it already has a walking animation, what I'm talking about is if you're wanting to pose specifically for, say, a animation that you're wanting to draw in a program like Krita. If you could rotate the character the way you want, and then you have your pose down, you're not going to want to change that view. So if you have to change the position of, say, where the arm or the leg is going to be, in order for it to look accurate, you need to rotate the view. And then you're going to find yourself in a predicament when you have to try and go back to the original view. So that's one of the reasons why I think it would be nice to have an option to save the view as well as to save a custom pose. And again, they could have it so that you could have a save slot on the bottom, load spot on the top, and then they can give you a number of them so that if you want to go back to an older one, you can do that. Or if you want to have a certain area that you're going to be going back to a lot while you're working, you can do that as well. In the hair editor's place, there is actually one issue that I do have, and let me just pull up any strand of hair that I got here. If I go over to the bone editor, this one. If you go to the spot where it has the fixed point, you can adjust it up and down. But the problem is when you have multiple hairs and you have them all set to the same area, it just basically chooses this spot that's somewhere in between them, and it might not even be the right rotation. So it would be nice if they had an option to, say, move this horizontally, forward, backward, etc. I think that would be a nice addition as well. Let's just see if I can turn everything back on. That's another one that they could probably consider, would be to show everything and hide everything. Because when you got a lot of hair like this, it can take a while to go through it. There. Alright, so now everything is there. So, that's it.